Welcome back to Virteva's Let's Talk podcast. It's Tuesday, July 1st, and it's episode 32. And on this month's episode, we're going to be diving into not only the new researcher app that we talked about last month, but we're also just going to kind of spend a little bit of time setting expectations for what you're actually getting with both the free version of Copilot that's available for everyone out there with most Microsoft 365 licenses, and then that paid version, the more premium tier version that ties into all your different Microsoft 365 apps. So Holly, welcome back to the show. I'm glad to have you here another month. We're kind of in like this awkward lull period right now that we oftentimes find ourselves in, whereas, Microsoft does a bunch of big events. They do Build kind of in May. They do a security conference in March. They do Ignite in November. They used to do a conference for partners in July, Inspire, but that's really kind of wrapped itself up into Ignite at this point. Like last year, I feel like was the first year for that where they kind of did away with the more kind of premium partner conference. Yep. And instead they've moved all that stuff to, they moved all that stuff really kind of just into one big conference. And I mean, if you went last year, you probably noticed that the price went up a little bit from the previous year. And I think some of that is to account for that. Ironically, as we're talking about this, we were just talking internally at Virteva about like preparing for Ignite and needing to know when we need to buy tickets. And I was saying, tickets usually go on sale in September or October, a couple of months ahead of the conference. They went on sale yesterday. So we're recording this on June 26th. So for them to go on sale this early is very unusual.
Well, I'll have to take a look at that. This is kind of one of those things where I've also been doing some classes and sessions talking about, rounding up updates around what's coming in new Outlook, et cetera. And definitely hit a lull. It's like this is the time of year where the Microsoft developers are maybe allowed to have a summer break of some sorts. Yeah. So good for them. But it means that, the news doesn't come as rapidly. It's usually going to be kind of holding back the dam until Ignite, and then there's just going to be a flurry of bigger announcements likely coming out of that conference.
Yeah, I expect that we're probably going to see another. So last year in September, we saw the Wave 2 updates come. Yep. Like that was the beginning, I feel like, of year 2 for them, even though it felt like it was only kind of midway through the year for us. But I would not be surprised at all to see them start to pepper in a little bit of news around what's coming next. Yep. Obviously, the roadmap is still there, so you can check that stuff out. There is a lot of, so one of the big new features that is coming over the next couple of months is, so when you go to copilot.microsoft.com, or just portal.office.com as you get that Copilot experience now that we demoed on our last show, is they're going to start bringing that Copilot chat experience directly into the Microsoft 365 apps, such as Word, Excel. So you're not only going to be able to talk to web search in there, but you're also going to be able to have deeper conversations in there. And that kind of really leads us into our first kind of topic for today, which is setting expectations, setting and understanding what you're actually getting. So there's two different kind of flavors of Copilot that we talked about on last show in depth when we kind of went over the app. And it's the free version of Copilot, and it is let me back up here real quick and I'll actually do a screen share.
Yeah, this is the new landing page. I'm always this is one of those things. I think you and I predicted early on that Microsoft was going to start kind of hitting us over the head with Copilot, and we weren't wrong. They are putting it under everyone's nose here. So the new landing page experience is Copilot chat.
So if you're looking at this, essentially what you're going to see is, if we were showing you kind of in Message Center in the early previews, is this area here that says, "Hi Scott, what can I help you with?" That's going to start to show up kind of more in the app. So if I go to word.office.com, and I'm in the web version right now, and I click on Copilot, is right now I'm kind of getting the view of, these used to be kind of like bigger prompt-based boxes. I've been seeing them shrink down a little bit. Is you kind of get, write a compelling intro, draft a counterpoint to this, etc. You have to, if you want something that's not one of those base prompts that's there to get you started, is you'll actually have to go in and type it out yourself. So
Yep.
instead, what Microsoft is doing is trying to give you more of a Copilot-ish view, Copilot chat, to kind of get you started with sending that message. So that's going to be one of the big changes that kind of starts to come to that free version. But again, just kind of putting into context for if you're an organization and you don't have any Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses, that's okay. You don't have to go out of your way to buy them to still be able to use Copilot. You can visit that m365.cloud.microsoft/chat link or office.com and interact with Copilot, and you're going to get that enterprise data protection that applies across all your chats and guarantees you, Microsoft's promise here is that anything you type in stays in your tenant. It never feeds the model. It never grows the model.
Right.
So again, kind of wanted to, Holly, we were talking pre-show, is like this is one of the most important parts to really kind of get in front of a customer that is talking about wanting to adopt AI is you already have it. It's there. Like you can visit that and you are going to get the web context of this and be able to use it however you want. Now, if you want to go a little bit more in depth and you want that grounding within your tenant, then you have those two additional options. The first option being you can go whole hog. You can get that Microsoft 365 Copilot subscription that costs $300+ a year for multiple users in the org, or you can turn on that consumption-based licensing or buy those message packs, and then that gives you the ability to interface a little bit more with the grounded data in your tenant under that work tab. The flip side of that is, so what I really want to kind of talk about is the setting expectations part of Microsoft 365 Copilot, the big, broad premium license. And that's, I think probably the easiest way to put it into context is to really kind of understand what sets Microsoft 365 Copilot apart from a ChatGPT Pro or Enterprise subscription or a Google Gemini subscription paired up with workspaces, or even just kind of, again, like that base Copilot or like a base Anthropic licenses. What's different? And while all of these are using large language models, some of them the same, some of them slightly different, the biggest thing that Microsoft does differently with their premium subscription is it ties in a uniqueness not only to the grounding of your tenant data, your emails, your meetings, your OneDrive files, etc., but it also ties into all the different applications that you've gotten used to using over the last 10, 20 years. So you've got a Copilot in Word, a Copilot in Excel, and what those tie-ins are meant to do is give you an advantage in those applications where you can do things a little bit faster. What it's not meant to do is, and I'll let you give your example because I really like your do task A, B, C, but task C is make me lunch. So I'll let you kind of jump in and kind of talk through that a little bit just to kind of set it up from your standpoint.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to highlight is this core chat service that's showing on the screen right now. Almost every Microsoft 365 license has access to this core service with commercial data protection. So if you're like, I don't want anyone in my company using ChatGPT or anything that I don't find secure, you do own this secure, generative AI service as part of Microsoft 365. Is it grounded in your company data? Meaning, can I ask it questions about the mail in my mailbox or the files in my OneDrive? No. Just the core service is just chat. But when you do license the at the higher level, where you do have access in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Whiteboard, Outlook, Teams, everything, is within those applications, Copilot has certain things that it can do and other things that it can't do. So a good example would be if I go into Word, what am I working on? A Word document. If I go into Excel, I'm working on a spreadsheet. So the problem is that sometimes we can dream bigger than Copilot can actually do. So if I go into Word and I say, write me an outline for a document that I'm going to use to present to a client, here's what it's for. Maybe here's an example outline that I want you to follow, but use it for this. It can do all this complex stuff, but then if at the end I'm like, and also make me a snack so that I can enjoy it while I'm watching you type up my document, it can't make you a snack. It can, there's certain things it's like, I wish Copilot could go, detail my car. It can't. So those are the things where sometimes we encounter people that can just dream a little bit bigger than Copilot. And I've also found that people that are experts in certain office applications, I deal with a lot of Excel experts. They might be sometimes even faster at doing something in Excel than Copilot can do. But it gives people that are not experts huge advantages. I work with a lot of engineers, great at Excel, amazing. Can't make their way around PowerPoint very well. But Copilot is such a good substitute for that PowerPoint knowledge. Make me a slide with these bullet points, add in an image, all of those things that maybe you would struggle to do if you didn't have a lot of application knowledge. That's good. But it just, I will tell you, I've run into people that have, they're following along, and then it can't do this one thing they wish it could do. And they get, they sort of are like, well, I wish it would do this thing. And I have even said, it may even be able to give you instructions how to do it, but not do it on its own. Yep. But it's big expectation setting. And I'll tell you, there have been times where people will, especially Excel, I will tell you, Excel tends to be that equalizer where they're like, well, I could have done that faster than Copilot. And I'm like, yes, probably if you're an Excel expert. But I always say, imagine if you didn't even know what a pivot table was. Yep. But you could ask it to make you one. Like that's, I think, where the biggest wins are, is that it really equalizes knowledge of these applications, how to use them across the end users in any given enterprise environment. So I really love that. I've asked it multiple times, hey, I need to write a formula that inserts a column of random dates. I know, I'm pretty sure Excel can do it. I don't really know. So I just asked Excel, how do I insert a random date? And then it wrote me the formula.
It's all about saving you time. It's like I get so I do workshops, you do trainings. We're both kind of really in it with a lot of different customers in banking and healthcare and manufacturing, and really Microsoft has pitched this from the very beginning differently than OpenAI and ChatGPT, which is where we hear a lot of the similarities. Gemini and stuff like that as well. It is there to help you do the work. It is not there to always do all of the work for you. So as you were kind of talking, Holly, I was giving some examples of different prompts in Copilot. And I kind of started off with, for our audio listeners, is write me an outline for a new managed service customer, create a document with bullet points, and then make me a sandwich. So it did exactly what I asked it, aside from the sandwich. It told me, no, it can't do that. It created me a very quick set of kind of headings, introductions, customer needs, and then sub-bullets. And then it told me, as for the sandwich, sorry, can't make you one, but I hope the outline helps. So then I said, hey, can you add more detail to the outline? And then it went through the exact same bullets, the exact same titles and settings and everything, and it added some additional context. You can even see that it referenced some footnotes there from both the conversation I was having with it, but also from other things that exist in my SharePoint, in my OneDrive, in my emails, in my Teams meetings. And that is what Copilot is doing for you. if you were asking Copilot to do, so if you have unformatted data and you paste it into a Microsoft Word document and you say, every fifth sentence, I want you to add a smiley face at the end of the second last word, but not before the period or a semicolon, Copilot doesn't know what you're looking for, especially if you're using unformatted data. Maybe there's no periods or semicolons in there and it's all just plain text. Copilot is smart, but it's not that smart, and it's not going to be able to do absolutely everything you want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way that Microsoft has designed this tool, especially to work in the more premium apps that you're used to, like the Words and the Excels and the Outlooks and Teams, is it is there to help you along the journey. It is not there to put gas in the car, load up your luggage, drive you to your destination, unpack your baggage, check you into the hotel. Now, maybe we're going to get to a spot in 3, 4, 5 years with Copilot agents where it's going to be able to do a lot more of that. But even like my own experience building agents, so kind of coming back to the agent example that I used, is that I built this HR agent within CrossFuse and Virteva.
Yep.
And I pointed it at our SharePoint libraries, and the purpose of this agent is supposed to be anything that's in the HR SharePoint is it can look up that data and it can provide me with answers based on the data,
right,
so that someone doesn't have to bug HR. Well, one of the use case problems that we've run into with it internally is when someone asks it for, hey, when is our next day off or when is our next payday, is it doesn't get that information right. And when you actually dig into the data that is provided by our HR and finance departments, is there's an Excel sheet that is, it's not like just kind of a list of dates and days of years. It is instead 12 different calendars with highlighted icons for when is a payday and like little circle drawings over when a holiday happens and the pay week skips. Copilot looks at that and it doesn't understand it because that's not typically the way that Copilot would see that document being created.
It can't reason with that. So that's such a good example.
Yep. Quality of data is very, very, very important when you're working with Copilot, especially when you're working with agents. That you need to. It honestly, it doesn't get that far off from what chatbots were 5, 6 years ago.
Right.
Especially in Power Virtual Agents, is you have a topic list and then you have the typical "this is how you answer" list.
Right.
So customer's going to ask question 1, 2, 3. You're going to answer 1A, 2A, 3A. As soon as question 1A is slightly different than the way you prompted it, you have to go in and you have to modify that prompt.
Right.
Now, where generative AI comes in and puts kind of a new swing on that is it understands it a little bit better, and it can kind of take some context from the large language model underneath it that sits in Azure. But at the end of the day, if the data is formatted bad, Copilot's not going to know what it's looking at, and it's not going to be able to make an informed decision. And that's kind of where, again, like tempering and calibrating your expectations when you're using the tools of what they're going to be able to do. And, there's also kind of the expectation that gets set by the salesperson, whether it be at Microsoft or a different company, of, oh, yeah, it can do anything you throw at it. Well, of course, the salesperson or the Microsoft rep may tell you that because they just want to sell it. Once it's in your hands, you're stuck with it, especially when you're buying that kind of that annualized subscription. So do your research, understand what you can use the tool for and what you actually want to do with it. And then the next step there is, this is where you build your training and your adoption content. And Holly, I know that this is where you and I really love to talk, because setting your team up for success to understand what they can do with the tool, and training your help desk so that they know, in your champions network so they know how they can support the tool, is just as important as buying the license and rolling it out. If you don't have a good adoption strategy and training strategy in front of you before you purchase and roll this stuff out, you're just going to fall on your face and you're going to feel like you lost money on the investment.
Well, and you and I have even probably witnessed, like any tool, you have to build habits around it. I can't tell you how many times we've done, gone through and worked through pilots and things like that, and people kind of fall back into old habits that don't involve, large language models or AI. They'll be doing things the old way. And we're, I would say, I have really forced myself to reach for Copilot, even in moments where I'm stuck. I always have to cycle through, like, could Copilot help me with this? And a lot of times it's just, I will hit a wall in my own personal knowledge and I'll just ask Copilot for instructions. How do I do this in Excel? And let me tell you, it is so much faster than Googling or looking up an answer on the web. And so I've basically replaced, I'll just say from, generative AI and the use of Copilot, I've essentially replaced Google in a lot of ways with Copilot.
Yep.
Now, that may seem like, whoa, that's an expensive, Google search. Yes. However, my efficiency is boosted. I don't labor in front of things that are hard to write anymore. I don't sit with a blank canvas trying to brainstorm by myself. I have an assistant that I work
Yep.
with now, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, I mean, if you're someone who's purchased Copilot licenses and are wondering, what are people doing? How are they using it? Go out to your administrative console, work with your GA, and look at the Copilot analytics,
Yep.
because you may see when and how people are accessing it. And if you want to boost that, those analytics will give you some targeted ways of saying, like, wow, we really got to get people using this more outside of Teams
Yeah.
versus, because I'll tell you, $30 a month per user is a lot for meeting summaries. Copilot
It's
recaps
just a
are
cup of
amazing.
it's a cup of coffee a day, Holly.
But I mean, it's one of those things where if people have a full Copilot license, but all they use it for is meeting recaps, it's time to boost everyone's knowledge and let them
Yeah.
know what else they can use it for.
And
Get the most out of what you're paying.
And a good example of that, and I brought up the prompt gallery because a lot of
Yes.
times I think that prompting is the wall people hit. And Microsoft has made this available in every Microsoft 365 app. They've even made it available for the free version of Copilot that you get that doesn't tie into the apps.
Yep.
If you need help coming up with prompts, you can go to copilot.cloud.microsoft and go to that prompt gallery. You can search by different apps. It'll give you ideas of what types of prompts you can use in Word, what types
Mm-hmm.
of prompts you can use in Excel. And this helps you get started so you're not trying to, write this amazing prompt for 3 hours only to, drop it in and it doesn't actually result in what you wanted it to. The other part of it too is, kind of getting back to the adoption stand piece is, so I actually just wrote up an internal summary for our
Mm-hmm.
management team on Copilot usage within Virteva and CrossFuse. And we have 16, 17 users using it right now. Guess what the percentage of them is that only uses it in Teams and nowhere else?
Over 80%.
It is very high, maybe even higher than that. But you can go in and you can get that data, and you can make. Not only am I saying that you should use it to tattletale on people in your organization to move licenses around, but I'm saying
Right.
that you should also be looking at that to understand that why are people only using it in Teams? Why are they
Right.
only using it Outlook? Internally, as part of kind of our champions program that I run, is I have a monthly meeting called the Copilot Roundtable, and I sit for an hour on a Friday, once a month, usually the beginning of the
Yep.
month, and I go over a deck that is nicely created by Microsoft, and it basically says, these are all the new features that came to Copilot last month and the
Yeah.
ones that are planning to come over the next 3. We spend the first 30 minutes looking at that, and then we spend the last 30 minutes talking about how have you been using it? Have you been running into
Yep.
any problems? Do you have any questions for me from a generalist standpoint?
Yep.
Do you have questions about agents? Are there ideas that you want to build an agent around that I can help with, or
Yes.
someone else on the team can help build? Like this, that is a good, and I'm kind of giving away a little bit of our center of excellence talk right now, but building a center of excellence
Yes.
in your organization when you're adopting Copilot is something that you have to do. You should really be doing it for any
Right.
technology that you adopt. But
Right.
Copilot is especially critical because people need to understand what they can do with it, or they hit the wall, and then you're not getting your money back on the investment.
Right. Well, and I've talked about this a lot in training. We learn from our peers way better than we learn from just a basic instructor like me. And I'll even put myself in that hot seat. When one of your coworkers shows you how they've been using Copilot, you're way more likely to start to just pick that up. So
Yep.
not only having that center of excellence, but that license is expensive. Scott knows it. I know it. And I don't ever want to, talk and belie the cost of that license. I know it's a business expense. It's a chunk. So make people commit to yes, I can give you that license, but I need you to champion it in your department or with our other Copilot users. We ask that you share the knowledge that you gain. If there's some efficiency or quick win that you got out of it that you think other Copilot users would find helpful, we want people to be vocal about it. So
Yep.
don't be afraid when someone says, we want this license, ask for that favor in return. Say, hey, we can get it to you, but we need to maximize the efficiency of these licenses. So you need to be vocal about it.
And
And it's great.
there's so much too that you can do with Copilot inside and outside the apps. That I understand that we're all working a 9 to 5 and we've got to get our work done. But as you have time, go out there and play around. Like this image that's behind me right now, you can see that I'm in a new office. This image was entirely created by Copilot Create. You do need a 365 subscription for that. But this past week, I created brand kits in Copilot Create for our organization. I gave Copilot a prompt, and it built me. I had to iterate on the prompt quite a bit, but it built me a virtual background, and then I was able to. I tried to apply our logo to it, but it just could not do that very well. So I had to take it to Photoshop and do a little bit of extra work on it. But just for creating, for like our expeditionary packages, I created this image. This was about a sentence and a half worth of prompting. And again, there's iteration that happens on the prompt, but you can see that it used our brand kit. And, this is just one other area that if you have a Copilot license, you can take advantage of. And by the way, Holly, I called this on the podcast last time, is Visual Creator is getting, it sounds like, retired and unpinned in favor of the Create option in July. So check out Create, awesome tool. We've got probably about 10 minutes left in the show. I wanted to jump in and talk a little bit around Researcher, which is the deeper thinking version of Copilot. And ironically, Microsoft also recently posted that just a chat feature is also going to be getting kind of a deeper thinking button here, as you have in the free version, the consumer version of Copilot right now. But what Researcher and analysts do are they use the O3 models of ChatGPT or OpenAI's large language model to do deeper learning and analysis. And there's a lot of back and forth on how useful this actually is right now. We're not going to go too far into detail, but there is a very well-written paper that was published by Apple at the beginning of June, and it had a couple, bigger name backers on it, basically talking about how the longer and the more you prompt some of these research models, what they're seeing is degradation in quality of response. And, that's here or there because Apple is kind of behind right now in the AI arms race. So there's a lot of questioning of, did they just put this out here to, point the spotlight away from them? But it'll be interesting over the next few months to see how that conversation continues. But getting into Researcher and Analyst, we're just going to take a look at Researcher today because I don't have a lot of good data for analysts specifically to look at. Research is all about, you have a topic, a report, you want to write a more detailed meeting prep, you want to do status reports on a project. Like these are the type of things that Researcher can dig into within your environment. Again, you do need a paid license to use this. That you can get more detailed information and analysis around it. I've got a prompt that we're going to use But I wanted to real quick highlight the difference between analyst and analyst is so you already have data like in an Excel sheet or in a Power BI report or in a very large white paper, and you want to really break that down and better understand what the trends are, what the insights are. This is where you would use analyst, and you would basically attach the file, give it a prompt, tell it what to do. So we're going to go back to researcher. I prompted yesterday on a vacation planning and assistant budgeting query. I like to try and keep the stuff a little bit lighter in my workshops, but oftentimes, we run into the customer feedback of, oh, well, this should be more business oriented. So I'm going to give a healthcare example here in a moment as well, just to show a little bit more of show and tell when we're actually doing it. So here's my report from yesterday. We're going to kind of walk through it. So I gave Copilot a pretty big prompt. An experienced travel agent that helps customers in the United States book vacations. Your goal is to help customers plan their trip by confirming budgets, dates, destinations, and then researching the destination, booking the flight, any accommodations, and providing nearby activities for reference. Use the following travel websites to help find details on flights, hotels, and activities. And then I gave it 3 different ones, booking.com, Expedia, and TripAdvisor. And then I told it to also categorize hotels, travel and activities into 3 different distinct categories and provide a budget and cost estimating table to each category, and then combine them into one holistic view for easy reading. So this is a very advanced prompt. Probably not as advanced as it could be, but again, I gave it a goal. I set expectations. I gave it sources. I told it exactly how I wanted it to format it. This is what a good prompt looks like, and it takes time to think that out and build that out. If you were building the same thing into an agent, I would highly recommend taking it, copying and pasting it into Copilot, and asking it to format it in Markdown language. If you know what that is, if you don't, that's what Copilot's here for, is it can do it for you. But Markdown language will make, especially if you're building an agent, make it a lot easier for Copilot or whatever the AI model is to understand what your instruction set is and how it should categorize things. But just we can go into that in a whole nother show, whole nother topic. So I gave Copilot my prompt. So I didn't give it a lot of details, but now it's kind of going back to question and answer. So it says, hey, I know that you're planning a vacation. I want to help you, but I got to confirm your budget, your dates, and your destination. So it gives it bulleted out to me. I say back and forth, say my budget's $5,000. I'm planning a trip the second week of August, and I'm thinking about visiting Holly and Santa Barbara. So if we were doing this live, we would see the actual reasoning happening. And this is what I'm kind of dropping down for the viewers is we can see every single thing that it went through when it was thinking about how to answer my questions. So it started considering flight options. It started refining search details based on my location because it knows where I am based on my browser. It starts looking at more details around the flights. It starts exploring pricing. It starts looking for alternatives from a travel perspective. It starts looking at hotels. It starts breaking down what my actual budget is to see if what it's found so far is going to work. It starts clarifying pricing details. It starts finding me other activities and things to do. And then you can even see that it's starting to build formulas into its thinking patterns, understanding how it's going to make all of this work within that $5,000 budget. When it finally starts to get to the end, it starts summarizing and formatting it and putting it into a way that I can view, and then it starts to spit me back out my answer. So it creates me a Santa Barbara beach vacation plan for August with a $5,000 budget. It gives me a high-level overview and tells me how it cited all of its information and sources. And then it starts breaking down, and again, you can kind of see that it broke out the travel section. That's actually showing me some HTML and line items of how it was doing the analysis and how it actually formatted that within its response. It goes into further detail about airlines, routes, typical travel fare in August, helping me find the best deal, estimated flight costs, and then it gives me multiple different flight options that I can compare in a table that cites not only the options, but the airlines I'd be
Yeah.
on, the details, the estimated cost. And it continues to do this for hotels, activities, everything I asked it to do. It's even giving me star ratings on hotels in here, which is nice. And that's a detail that I didn't necessarily ask it for up front, but I
Right.
appreciate it because that's going to help me make a decision. And then it goes down and it continues and goes into activities up into the point that we finally kind of get to the end of this very, very long
Right.
research project. And it tells me, with careful planning, we can send you out to Santa Barbara on a luxurious vacation and keep you under your budget. And then it gives me a number of different options for booking across these different websites. It didn't quite book it for me, but what it did do was it gave me links over to those websites. So now that I have all the information, again, this gets back to the top of the show, is it did everything but make the sandwich.
Right. Exactly.
So now that we have the details, we can go make the sandwich ourselves, and that's what
Yep.
this is all about. Again, as agents continue to build out, I would highly expect that, this was something that was announced two years ago. What was it
Yep.
called? Copilot plugins, where kayak.com
Yeah.
and stuff like that would show up on the side of the page and help you book your trip. And then those all just kind of disappeared into the ether and were never talked
Quietly,
about
never
again.
quite.
Never happened. But yeah, it just, that stuff's coming, I bet. It's going to take some
Right.
time to get it
Right.
right. I also would not be surprised at all to learn that there is probably a cost involved in partnering up with
Right.
third parties
Right.
on.
And that's
So,
kind of one of the things that I always want people to like. This is a huge it's a huge advantage. It's a huge advantage to have the paid license, to have access to tools like Researcher. However, there are all sorts of little caveats here and there around licensing and things like that. So another good example is Power BI.
yep,
Being able to use some Copilot capabilities in Power BI, but not all,
yep,
because it requires um, more Azure licensing. Because all of a sudden, the second we're doing things that are just kind of non-standard, where we're asking it to do deeper processing, maybe on huge, huge, huge data sets, right? Microsoft can't know what we're reporting on out of Power BI, so they want us to pay for the processing that goes
yep.
with it.
And
So just be aware.
Excel has the same thing to it as well.
Yep.
The advanced details and formulas in Excel with Python is there's two different tiers to that. There's
Yep.
the basic tier, and then if you want more, there's a processing fee that
Yep.
comes with that. So it's the same thing as being applied to Copilot Studio. I've seen in the background is Copilot
Exactly.
Studio. Again, that's a premium product that you either get with your Microsoft 365 license or you have to have a license another way. But if you're
Right.
starting to poke around on some of the more autonomous stuff or automatic stuff that's happening behind the scenes, um, and you want to path some of that out, those little diamonds are starting to show up in
Oh
there. Is
yes.
that there is going to be additional cost on top of that? So keep that
Right.
in mind. Not to get too far off topic, I did have one more kind of prompt, especially for our YouTube watchers,
Yep.
on more of a healthcare evaluation, just so you can kind of see how Copilot does
Yep.
this in the background. So I'm telling it that I'm evaluating the potential implementation of remote patient monitoring for my healthcare system for our clinics in the US. And I'm
Right.
asking it to provide me more detailed market research that includes adoption rates, top RPM vendors,
Right.
regulatory and reimbursement updates with CMS. So I don't know a lot of this. I actually prompted Copilot to help me build this prompt because I
Yeah.
don't work in healthcare. I support healthcare from IT, but I'm not in that field. So that's where this becomes a little bit more difficult. But really, kind of what I wanted to show you here. So it's going to ask me a couple of follow up questions to
Right.
make sure it understands the request is: are you looking for specific data on adoption rights from 2012 or 2022 to 2025? And I'm going to tell it yes to that. Do you have any specific RPM vendors that you'd like to include in the list, and I don't. And the third one is, are there particularly states or regions that you're most interested? So I'm going to say
Right.
New York State and California. And then I'm going to tell it, let's do 2015 to 2025 to broaden the search.
Oh, you got to make it to 2025. I think you did
Oh, yeah,
2015 two times.
typo. And then the last one here was just list the top 10 vendors.
Yeah.
All right, so I gave it the question, the qualifying questions that it needs, and now what we're going to see is we're going to see research take its time, and that is the biggest piece of research to understand. Is when you're using researcher, you're using analyst, because it's using deeper thinking, is it's using more resources on the back end. It is going to take you a longer time to get your response back. So again, like last time we talked about the generalist versus the specialist and the agent.
Right.
Researcher is an agent. Researcher is a specialist. It's going to take longer times to give you answers, and you're going to have to be more detailed with it. The generalist is you're going to Copilot in Word, and it's giving you basic things that it can do that is pre-programmed to help with in that context. So we can see it working here in the background. It's going to take some time. Holly will let it do its thing and just kind of hang out here, and I'll speed up the video, and then we'll kind of go over the results.
Yeah, the thing that I would always say is if you gave this research project to someone on your team, you know, if you said, hey, we're looking to this and I want you to do a write-up on this, even though Copilot's moving a little slower than maybe some people would expect, it still does it a lot faster than we can do it. And, you know, if you're just saying, Copilot, get me the first draft of this, and then I'm going to go in, cross-check what you've put out there, make sure your sources are correct and current, you know, we can get to a finished product so much faster than starting from absolute square one. So I always say, consider a lot of this stuff, you know, first draft, it's going to, you know, gives you such a more complete jumping off point.
Yeah, 80% of the way there, you finish up the last 20%, and I'm happy that I heard you say, and not in the same language that I generally do, is question the answers. Because I'm that big Mighty Boss Tones fan. But you know, you do have to look at the data. Like, it's the prompt that we're giving it is something that will probably take a team of people a day to do, or one person 3, 4, 5 days to do, and then they have to actually start writing up the paper. What Copilot's doing, it's going to do all of this probably within the next 2 to 3 minutes. But then you need to read through the data. You need to look at the sources. You need to make sure that it's actually getting what it's saying right, especially the longer you stay in this model, you know, kind of based on that report that we heard, is, you know, make sure that especially the longer you spend in the model, like, actually look at the data, understand it, verify it, trust but verify. Same thing with zero trust security is spend the time reviewing what it gave you. Don't just drop it into a college paper
Well,
and send it to your professor.
I have such good examples of that. You know, one time I was asking Copilot to make me a list of all the Minnesota Twins home games. I wanted to know all the home games with the dates, and it was generating something, and I was like, these aren't the home games of the Minnesota. This isn't right. And I asked Copilot, like, this is not right. You know it's not right. Why? And they said MLB.com information is copyrighted. I can't really give you the real answer. So one of the things that I would even tell people is, if Copilot isn't giving you something, if you know right off the bat, you're like, that is not correct. You can ask a follow-up question. You know, why did you say this? It could be that it's trying to pull from a copyrighted source and it just can't. I wish Copilot would just stop, but sometimes it just, you know, wants to make you happy and give you what you want. Even if it just looks like what you want, it's not actually the truth. So go in and cross-check. I say sometimes when we're working with Copilot, rather than being the author, we take on the role of being the editor. So we're going through and reading, checking sources, making sure. And even though you're like, oh, come on, the world I was promised was, Copilot just does everything for me. No, it's you, Copilot is your Copilot. You're still in charge. You still have to make sure everything's correct and true.
100%. All right, Holly. So looks like it's taken its time here still on this research project. So I think we're going to wrap things up because we've gone a little past that last 10 minutes. But you get the idea. If you're still watching in the background, you can see Copilot doing its work on our YouTube page. But yeah, especially if you have a Microsoft 365 license, take a look at this feature. Check it out. Try it out yourselves. Mileage is going to vary, but again, the big thing when you're talking about using researcher and analyst is going in with strong prompts and then questioning those answers and trusting and verifying the data.
Absolutely.
All right, Holly, thanks again for being here. I'm going to take us to the outro. Thanks again for tuning in this week. If you want to learn more about Copilot and how you can use it across different areas of your Microsoft 365 environment, both in the free and in the premium versions, you can visit the links in the show notes. If you want to learn more about Researcher, I've also included a link to the Researcher and the Analyst agents as well. If you have any additional questions or need help with implementing or training around Microsoft 365 modern work, security, Copilot features, all the above, Virteva is a leading IT managed service and security partner, and we can help you with all your IT needs. You can email us at letstalk@virteva.com or visit our website at www.virteva.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and if you made it this far, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Have a great day. Bye.